skirt around with it. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Highland Neighborhood Association. First up will be Officer Anderson.
I'm coming.
I don't want to have to arrest you or anything. Okay.
Go ahead, try. So hello, West Highlands. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I always bring our property crime maps. They're on the back table there by Trevor. If you guys want to take a look at those. I'm sure it's the broken record message. Just please lock your cars. Please don't leave anything in your cars. Please put your garage door openers in your house if they're in your car. That's just a real significant problem for us citywide, not just in West Highlands. So you guys are doing everything right. It's a crime of opportunity, so we're just trying to cut down on that, and we'll continue preaching that message. I also brought some Halloween safety tips, mainly for families and kids. If any of you have access to newsletters or social media, please feel free to share that information. It's a really professionally made brochure with safety tips for kids and families, and we just want everybody to have a good time on Halloween, and not anybody get hurt or injured or worse. There's some people that look at that as an opportunity for weird things as well, which is kind of disturbing. But keep your lights on, and let's let these families have a good time. So we appreciate that. I think we talked about this briefly last month when I was here, because I think it happened on the day of our meeting. There was a significant event involving some North High students that a lot of people were talking about back and forth on Nextdoor, which is fine. I just want to emphasize again, if there is criminal activity being discussed on Nextdoor and somebody has information that may be useful, can somebody please call the police? We do not have the ability to monitor Nextdoor, so we don't know those conversations that are taking place until somebody does take the time to call us and say, hey, there's something going on. This came up again today, not in this neighborhood, but another neighborhood. I'll just tell you, it was in Highlands. Same thing, some car break-ins. They're posting pictures of a guy going checking car doors, but nobody called the police. They're just sharing it on Nextdoor. So I sent some cars out there once I got an email regarding it, but I'm sure they were long gone by then. But just a reminder, I love Nextdoor. Continue to use it, but just think about that. Our next CAG meeting, which is our Citizens Advisory Group meeting, will be October 15th at 6 p.m. at the District 1 Police Station. Commander Martinez will be there this month. Last month he had a prearranged vacation before he became commander, and his wife made him go on vacation, so he had to go. So hopefully that meeting went well. I wasn't there either, because I was also on vacation as well. And that's my main topics, but I'd love to have questions. Yes, sir.
Within about the last 6 weeks, the city of Denver installed 3 traffic circles,
Right.
etc. on 35th. Could you go over the rules of the right-of-ways?
Yes.
The traffic circles and who has right-of-way,
Mm-hmm.
a few things?
Right.
There's a lot of misunderstanding.
Right, so those traffic circles, there is 3 of them. They're pilot programs. They're in the test phase right now for a year. So they're not permanent at this point. When you enter a traffic signal, whether you stop first at a stop sign or a yield sign, once you enter and you're inside that traffic signal, you have the right of way, no matter where everybody else is on the outside of that traffic signal. They have to yield to you. So you have the right of way once you have established yourself in that traffic signal. So for instance, we have some up on Pecos and I-70, and this happens quite a bit, where people are in there in the traffic signal at a slow speed. Somebody comes off the highway and barrels into them. Well, that person that's coming off the highway that thinks they have the right of way all of a sudden is getting a ticket because they did not yield. Thankfully up there, since they're permanent, they're marked better and there's some yield signs and everything, so it's a little easier to understand. But just wanted you to be aware of that. So once you've established position, you have the right of way. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On your report, is it possible to include assaults and robberies?
They don't include that on this report, but when you come to our monthly meeting at the station, the commander talks about those issues. The reason they don't put them on this report, because a lot of times there's circumstances involved with that, like domestic violence crimes and family disputes and stuff, that although there is a crime being committed, there is not as much concern for impacting other people in the neighborhood. It's contained to a family unit, whereas car break-ins and burglaries and stuff, those are usually people that are targeting a neighborhood. But we do talk about that. That information is available online though. If you go to denvergov.org, go to the police link, you can go down to West Highlands, click on it, it'll show you every crime category in the neighborhood. But we just don't typically bring those. But I'll talk to the commander about that, because I've been asked that question a few times. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to provide it since it's public information anyways. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up. So maybe next time we'll have those. All right. Okay, speak now.
Anyone else?
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, officer. Okay. Okay, next we have a speaker for Democracy for the People. Would you like to come up, please, and introduce yourself? Thank you. Hi, glad you're here.
Yeah, good to be here. I'm amazed that people are here. It's 1-0 Rockies. So, I'm Owen Perkins, and I'm with the Democracy for the People initiative. It started out as a citizens initiative, but it ended up getting referred to the ballot unanimously by City Council, which is a complicated story I'm happy to talk about when I run out of time, if you want. But this is a campaign finance reform measure for Denver. It's on the ballot in Denver, and it's 2E. Did we have enough of those? I've got more. So it's Measure 2E, and it does 4 big things. The idea is to get big money out of politics, and we've seen recent polling, but consistent for years and years and years, but recent polling this year from a joint study by President George Bush's Institute, George W. Bush's Institute, and Joe Biden's Institute, that together found, I think it was about 80% of the country was worried about the state of democracy in the United States. And the number one reason they gave was big money in politics. So this is an effort to get big money out of politics, and it's kind of a reaction to Citizens United in some ways, but it's something that's been going on long before Citizens United. And part of our goal is to address public financing. So we do 4 big things. And one is we ban corporations from being able to donate directly to campaigns in Denver, as they're banned at the state level and the federal level. This is being able to donate directly. So they can currently write checks right out of their operating account, AT&T or Exxon or Joe's Coffee or whoever. And they can't do that at any other level in Colorado. So one of the loopholes that we have in elections in Denver is that for every business you own, you can donate up to the maximum for any contribution from that business. So I know somebody who's got 13 businesses, and the contribution limit for mayor right now is $3,000. I can give $3,000. I don't own any businesses, but I can do that as an individual. My friend with 13 businesses, some of which may just be kind of LLCs that don't have a lot of people, if any, employed other than him, but they're there in name, he can give $42,000 to a candidate for mayor, because he can give $3,000 for each of those 13 businesses and $3,000 for himself. So by taking the corporations out, not only do you eliminate that kind of special interest of corporations who are looking to get rollbacks and beneficial legislation out of their vote, but you also eliminate that loophole of changing a system that's meant to be one person, one vote, into a system that starts to feel like $1, one vote. So that's the one big thing, is it bans corporations from donating directly to campaigns. We'll also lower the contribution limits. They're very high in Denver. The $3,000 that you can give to a mayor candidate is more than twice what you can give to a governor candidate in Colorado, and about $1,000 more, I think, than you can give to a candidate for president. So we lower it to $1,000 for mayor, and an example on the local level is we lower the $1,000 city council district person to $400, which is what a state representative or state senator can take, $400 per cycle. So we kind of get in line with the state model, which has been more recently reformed. Another big thing it does is we initially wrote legislation into this to get required disclosure of dark money. And City Council has since passed that language. So that's no longer part. When we changed it to a referred measure, we were able to take out some redundancies and improve a lot of things, but it does maintain that, that requirement to disclose dark money so that you can't have this anonymous spending on elections in Denver. And then the big thing it does is the public finance system. So it would provide publicly financed elections for candidates who opt in, who choose to take the public match. And in choosing, they accept lower limits again. So they would take that $400 limit and lower it to $200 for a city council district candidate. But in return, and for also not taking any PAC money or special interest money, in return for that arrangement and committing to 2 debates and one another if there's a runoff, they get matching funds at a 9-to-1 level for contributions up to $50. So what we do with that is we really, with the whole package, is really shift the emphasis from who can raise the most money and who has the best connections to wealth and to big dollar donors, and we shift the emphasis to small dollar donors. And we're, there are about 3 dozen of these around the country in cities, states, and counties. We're I think the best at really valuing low dollar donations, small dollar donations. Some have small dollars at $250 or $175, but we think 50 is getting into the small dollar range. And to be able to, how many people do we have here today? A good 20, it looks like. If I was a candidate and I came to a meeting with 20 people from the neighborhood, community members, and I can convince you that I've got a good platform, I've got good ideas, and you like me, want to support me, if I could get $50 from everybody in the room, and I qualified for the matching funds, that would turn into $10,000 coming from a room of constituents from the community who live in the same neighborhood, have some shared interests together, but are regular people who are now becoming empowered. We've seen that regular voters are feeling like their vote doesn't matter and their small dollar donation can't make a big impact. But now it can, and now there would be no reason why somebody couldn't raise more money by abandoning the hours every day spent dialing for dollars to wealthy donors, and instead of spending all that time looking for big money, going into their community, talking and listening to their constituents, getting small dollar donations, and ending up with more money. A $50 contribution would end up being $500. And as I said, the maximum for a city council district candidate would be $400 otherwise if you're not in the system. So you could get more out of a $50 donation than somebody who wants to stick with special interest money could get out of a $400 donation. And that's a great shift in emphasis, and it shifts really from the special interest to the public interest. And I'll just kind of close up and then take questions on 3 quick examples of places that have done this already. New York has probably been doing it the longest, New York City. They've been doing it almost 40 years. And what they've seen there in that time, and they improve it every year, but what they've seen is it really has changed their community, and it has changed the face of their legislature. So they have people voting, donating to campaign, voter turnout increases, engagement in campaigns increases, donation increases. Where those donations come from. They come from every block in the city instead of just from wealthy pockets within the city. And as a result, New York has elected a majority minority, I guess they call it a majority minority council for the first time in their most recent election, where the majority of city council actually reflects the fact that the city doesn't have a kind of a traditional majority population in it. So they've seen just that tremendous change. Another great example is Seattle, who just last year, for the first time, enacted their program. And what they do is a little different. They give 4 $25 vouchers to every registered voter in the city. So everybody can contribute up to $100 from these vouchers from public funds to a candidate who, like ours, opts into a matching fund system and or a public financing system. And in their system, they ran it, staggered it in with just 3 elections last year, and they have partisan races, so they had a primary, and the 6 final candidates for the 3 elections, 5 of them chose to take the public funds. 2 of those folks maxed out at getting $300,000 in vouchers, which was 12,000 vouchers per candidate, which is about 10,000 more than any candidate in Denver at any level got in the election in 2015. So, and what candidates saw was finally they could go to underrepresented communities. They could go to people on fixed incomes and make them a voting bloc. They could go to people at minimum wage jobs and make their voice matter. They could go to people who didn't have homes and suddenly give them a major role and playing a role in how their legislature is shaped. And the third example I'll give is the state of Connecticut. And we actually just got a great clip from somebody who's finishing a documentary movie about Connecticut. But, I think back with Connecticut to Sandy Hook and the shootings there where 21st graders were killed along with 5 of the staff members at the school. And President Obama and a lot of politicians tried to do everything they could to address the gun issue at that time and the killings in schools and other parts of the community. And does anybody have an idea of what the result of all that effort was? Can anybody say? Not much, nothing is what a lot of people will say. And that's true on the national level. But in Connecticut, where they'd been through several cycles of electing legislature through publicly financed elections, they actually, they were not answering to special interests. They weren't answering to the gun lobby. Those people, the gun lobby had not paid for anybody's campaign. These folks had gotten in there by regular people making small dollar donations. And they said enough, and they passed some of the strictest gun regulations, gun safety regulations in the country. They lowered their gun homicide rate to be about the lowest in their history and among the lowest in the country. And I think that's the kind of change that you see when you have a legislature that is there answering to their constituents. They're representing the public interest instead of the special interests. And that's what we hope to see in Denver, is that kind of engagement all across the board from regular voters, that kind of empowerment of communities that have been left in the shadows for so long, and a legislature that really reflects the community and stands up for the community's interests. So that's a brief summary of what it does, and I'll take any questions in the time I've got left. Yeah.
I'm curious how this is going to affect the behavior of PACs.
Of PACs, it'll be interesting to see. I would sort of suspect that there are some people, some candidates and elected officials who will feel, hesitant to jump into this, and so they'll stick with the PACs that donate to them. PACs are still able to donate, but not to candidates who opt in.
Well, that's 90% of the problem is the spending, the unlimited spending by PACs.
Well, the unlimited spending that's a terminology issue. That you're talking about probably super PACs. And the independent expenditures. That's different than the political action committees that I was talking about. So what we find is that where super PACs get involved is mainly a measure of how competitive the race is, and that the public financing hasn't been shown to change the dynamics on super PACs and outside spending. But one of the things that happened as a result of our initial language that City Council ultimately passed last fall is that those super PACs now have to disclose who their donors are, and it becomes no longer the anonymous spending influencing elections, but you see now who is trying to influence election, who's trying to buy your vote.
Just last night, there was a 2-hour documentary
Dark money.
Right.
Yeah.
And focused on the PACs in Montana, and again, you know, they lost the case, right? The Supreme Court backed up the super PACs in terms of not only unlimited spending, but also non-anonymity as well.
Right. But Montana bucked them. Montana is the only state in the country that bucked that ruling. And that's why they were so, that's a fantastic movie. I'm sure it's going to show again on PBS. It's called Dark Money. And one of the heroes of it is a woman from Colorado who was, some call her a whistleblower, but she's the one who had all the documents that showed the unbelievable coordination between the super PACs and the candidates. Because when you have a super PAC, they're not supposed to coordinate at all with a candidate. They're supposed to be completely independent. And that's one of the reasons they're allowed to spend infinite amounts of money, is that they're not working with a candidate. But what they proved up there and won and defeated the candidate who had violated that law was that there was unbelievable coordination. They had supplied the candidate with walk lists, they'd supplied them with donor lists, they'd supplied them with a whole campaign plan, with literature, unbelievable. But I would definitely recommend that movie. There are so many things that went right in the fight there in Montana that we don't have in place. I mean, they have campaign finance overview in Montana, an office doing that. There was a big featured part of that movie. We don't have any office like that in Colorado. This legislation actually creates an office like that in Denver, which would be a welcome benefit to have somebody in taking responsibility and holding people accountable. Yeah.
What happens to the general fund money that is left in the account of the person? Because my concern is general fund money going into the account.
So there's the money comes from the general fund. The money for the Fair Elections Fund comes from the matching funds comes from the general fund. It's $2 million a year or $8 million a cycle maximum, and that's I think 0.16% of our budget. And it's also money in reserves in the general fund that's not being spent on anything else. But the question is, when a candidate, if I got the question right, when a candidate ends their campaign and has money left over, right now a candidate can do a lot of things with it. They can give money to a charity, they can give to another candidate, they can give to an issue committee, they can give to a scholarship fund. If they are taking matching funds, they'll only have one option for what they can do with leftover funds that came from municipal sources, and that's to give it back into the Fair Elections Fund. And I actually would thank Councilman's, what's that? Yeah, for bringing this up earlier in the year. One of the advantages we had is we got on the ballot with fixed language a year ago, and we've talked to thousands of people since then and gotten a lot of great ideas. And because City Council was willing to take this up and introduce it as a referred measure, which they did unanimously, we were able to make changes, and that was one of the changes we were able to make, and a lot of improvements to make it stronger and better and clearer. So we think it's a fantastic option. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
To make sure that it goes back into the general fund, is it the clerk and recorder, or is it the auditor, or is it the accountant?
The clerk and recorder is responsible for auditing it. The current clerk has said she would like to involve the auditor's office since they have that expertise. But one of the other things that was recommended was that we set up 2 separate accounts so that any candidate would have a separate account for the money that came from municipal funds. So it's very easy to track that your municipal funds went into this account, were spent on these issues, and you didn't have any left over, or you did have $500 left over, and that goes back to the Fair Elections Fund. But there's some very strong teeth in there on every level of following the new guidelines and spending money appropriately. And you can be denied office and go to jail and have a very hefty fine if you break some of those laws, which is, there used to be no penalty for breaking campaign finance law in Colorado. So this is a big step. Yeah.
Who actually monitors all of this? How is it monitored and who?
Well, it comes out of the county clerk's office is responsible, the clerk and recorder, who also oversees elections. So it's seen as part of that office, and it creates a new position for somebody to actually be monitoring the publicly matched funds, and that's part of the $2 million a year pays for that role. And I don't know how many people that would be. That would be up to the clerk's office. In New York, a much bigger city, they have hundreds of people employed working to monitor and administer and implement the system. Yeah, I'm probably running out of time, but.
I was wondering, places that this has been adopted, how much has it smoothed the votes? How many more candidates can be?
You know, it's so many different places that I can't say how many more across the board, but it is many more. You get a lot more candidates. You get more young people running for office, more women running for office, more people of color running for office, and in all cases, winning office. So one of the biggest changes you see is a much more diverse field of candidates. And you also get that same level of increase in voting and engagement with campaigns as volunteers and donors. I'm going to stick around despite the fact that there's a Rockies game going on right now. And if there's more questions, I'm happy to take them afterwards.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
And I've got a sign sheet if you want to sign up for our newsletter, email, anything like that. We've also got the art signs in the back for the general.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Amanda? This is Amanda Sandoval of Councilman Espinosa's office.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for me being late on the agenda. I sit on the Regis Community Council, and their meetings are always from 5:45 to 7:30, so I do my best to juggle both meetings. So I have here, how many people here, let me just show by a raise of hands, have looked into the draft Blueprint Denver that is out? Has anyone read it? Has anyone read it page from beginning to end? So the comment period ends October 31st on Halloween. The councilman has been working with other RNOs to ask for an extension. So if Whna would like to ask for extension, we have some wording that you can use because we think that it's important that this get done correct. And it seems to have 4 plans. It's Blueprint Denver, it's the comp plan, so it's technically 5. Denver moves, the park plan. It seems like a lot of the onus is on the city and the residents to read these plans and to provide feedback. So we're asking for an extension. But in the meantime, a very helpful person who I'm not going to name because he's asked not to be named has created a study guide for how to read Blueprint Denver and how to read the comp plan and what key points are actually in that document so that you don't have to read 250 pages to finally understand what terminology would be used for rezoning in your neighborhood and how that would be impacted. So we made copies, and I will have Jackie, if you don't mind, passing those out.
Of course not.
So take a look at that to see. It's been helpful to me because the first 25 pages are great. Yeah.
There's only 16 copies we have out of show. So I would say couple split, and only if you really dead set on parsing thousands of pages of we will post it on meeting minutes.
And I can get you a digital copy if you need the digital copy. I can send.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yep. I'll send you a digital. Just remind me to get your email. So another thing that was created by the same very helpful person who created this little study guide was a comment, a way to track your comments. So if you're interested in making comments and you don't know exactly how to give them to the city, I have a template that we could send out from our office. And it's easy for you to go in there and say comment 1, what's your issue with it? What would you like to see resolved? So then that way, when the city comes back, you can say you didn't even address my comment, and you actually have a way to keep track of your comments. And then another thing is, I'm sure all of you have heard about the 35th Bike Avenue update. Our office has gotten inundated with them, so with comments and feedback. So I think that I sent Jackie and Trevor, I think it's all been posted on tonight's agenda, what was on tonight's agenda if you got it electronically. There's a survey going out for the 35th Avenue bike lane that will also post on Raphael's Facebook page. But I think you sent it out and then on Nick's door. So it's on both locations and then it will be on Raphael's. So once again, this is when the city's asking for our comments and feedback. So it's important that we give it to them, whether you like them or whether you not, or if you think they work or you absolutely hate them. I think this is a good time to provide feedback. And then other than that, regarding Blueprint Denver, what we're looking to do is we're gonna have 3 community workshops and host them in the district so that people can come and offer feedback. And if you're having trouble reading the plan, which Raphael and I attended a 4-hour work session last week with the Highland United Neighbors, Planning and Community. And I think it was 4 hours. After the 4 hours, I left very frustrated. I know Raphael left very frustrated because it's really complicated to use this planning document. And that's a planning group the chair has been doing this for almost 30 years and is an architect. And by the end of the 4-hour session, we realized we did it wrong by using the incorrect map first, and we didn't read the context. And it was, needless to say, it was really frustrating 4-hour. And so we're having another one. So we're taking feedback and we're kind of creating how to make it easier so that when we have these community meetings, hopefully we can have a guide on how to be really efficient and help people with this. And that group created a really great map where they layered the blueprint map on top of a zoning map, and so it was all right there. So we're gonna look to see if we could get those recreated for every single registered neighborhood organization. So we would get those for Whna as well. So, yeah, Mary?
Sorry, did you say there's another meeting planned? And if so, when is that? And is it open to anyone who's interested?
So we have another meeting planned with Honey, and what we're having, just that meeting, it's next week. And I would say we're opening it, but we're opening it to the other RNOs who will be in the same neighborhood plan as them, the neighborhood planning initiative. So we've opened it to Jefferson Park, Sunnyside, and Chaffee Park. Just more as an observation to see how they work. So it's not a big meeting per se.
Actually, it's purely observation. They're not to participate with the Honey group, they're observed, because it was clear that there was lessons to be learned just from the 4 hours of what we went through last time.
So, I heard that Whna is not in that same neighborhood planning group. Is something being planned for our neighborhood planning group?
Yeah, so we're still doing the probably 2 full days, or upwards of 2 full days at Willis Case. We have 1 day,
Yeah, they only have 1 day allowed for us.
not all of Willis Case, but we're gonna do the 2 full days in a dedicated spot in the community. But following what we're learning through this process. And so, I want to say that the thing about this document, just to dovetail on last week, is I specifically said to focus on the recommendations portion of that thing. So that's all in that document is it's those recommendations.
collector arterial.
And those change, whether you're in an urban context, urban center context, edge context. And so what looks like the same thing in one area versus another area versus another area are different. So that's what we're working on, is how do we simplify this process so that we don't have to understand the entire matrix.
Raphael?
Yeah, they want you to talk. That's why I had asked if you wanted to talk.
Normally I project, so, yeah, so the point is that the maps are, there's just too much, they spent too much time talking amongst themselves, and working out on, big picture things that they aren't seeing how these things are actually used by the layperson and the community. And so we've actually invited CPD to observe, again, just to observe, as much as we'd like to start bouncing questions off of them because we're going to be confused, just to observe what's going on with Honey so that they get it. That this is, you can have some very, very capable individuals in the room that understand planning documents sitting here going, why are these terms the same? Why are they the same as other places used in dissimilar ways? Because it's hard to, the concepts are there, but how they're articulated and how they carry themselves forward is not easy. So start with those recommendations because those are the nuts and bolts of what's that?
Recommendations and policies.
Yeah.
Policies in the document.
And we'll get into the mapping, in upcoming discussions. Yes.
So if there will be a forum for our area, can you let us know what dates and where that will be?
So this is something that we're happy to coordinate with you guys. I mean, we were just doing this with Honey because Honey asked, and we wanted to test these tools and these findings, but they were aggressively working on it. They were the first to comment each iteration. So we're happy to work with your planning and zoning committee. I have talked to Ray specifically. One way you guys can help me help you is have a regular meeting on a regularly scheduled time so that we can direct development interests to that workflow. This is what works very well on Honey. It is one of the things that we've convinced Sunnyside to do, and they have been successful in really moving forward on being more pragmatic on how they approach their land use decisions. And now I'm happy to say that Brun just voted on Tuesday of last week to normalize their planning and zoning committee. And so they have now set dates into the future. And that would be really, really helpful so that we can have it on our maps, on our calendars, what we can and should prepare for so that we can communicate the same information. So, and that's, JPUN's always been that way. So that is something I would encourage. So any other questions? I thought I saw a hand over here.
Is there a Highlands district or Northwest Highlands, but is there a separate Highlands?
So we're going by statistical neighborhoods.
Do we coordinate together because it seems like we don't have as many members as there are in Berlin or as there are in
We're going to be basically doing the coordination through me. Because we're going by statistical neighborhoods. There are 13 statistical neighborhoods that make up, did I get that right? No, 9 statistical neighborhoods that make up Northwest Denver, Jefferson Park, Highland, Sunnyside, and Chaffee Park on that side of Federal. And then on this side of Federal, West Colfax, Sloan's Lake, West Highland, Berkeley, Regis, and Inspiration. Well, I don't know, Inspiration Point's part of Regis. So there is what Amanda was talking about is there's a neighborhood planning initiative. They split Northwest Denver into 2 areas, near Northwest and far Northwest. So everything on this side of Federal is considered far Northwest. Everything on that side of Federal is considered near Northwest. So we are expanding the observation portion of our Highland meeting
to the near northwest people because they are part of a neighborhood planning initiative coming next year. You guys are far down the queue. The other thing is that you don't have here is there are 21 different zone districts in Highland. There are 23 different zone districts in Jefferson Park. You are not plagued with that sort of, you have more uniformity of zone districts and context. So it's going to be easier nut to crack over here once we start cracking it, but let us work on that difficult stuff next week, in the next couple of weeks. So you do have an automatic extension to November 30th if you ask for it. So your planning and zoning committee needs, or your neighborhood should ask for and request an extension to November 30th. That much you'll be granted. That said, we're still looking for your support in going into next year. February or April, I think, are our real goal is next April. So that's it.
Thank you, Raphael. Okay, committee updates. Design and preservation. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, just a couple of things. We had 7 committee members go through, every year we're mandated to have training on the design review process for the Landmark Preservation Commission. So several of us had our training at Woodbury Library, and another member went to another location. So 7 members going through that was a very good response, so I'm happy about that. Also, it looks like thanks to Marie and talking with Historic Denver, Packers Hill will get recognition as a Community Preservation Award from that organization at their annual dinner on the 24th of October. So it really does recognize the hard work of people like Marie and her neighbor Eric and many other people, but some people were really outstanding, so I'll just leave it at that. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, liquor license. Nope, okay, that's good. Social committee, Pat? No? Okay, transportation committee? Nope. Zoning committee? Nope. Okay, so now it's time for open floor for non-agenda items. If you'd like to come up and speak about something. Okay, you'll form the line
All right, anybody else want to form the line with me?
for the open forum. Serena?
All right, thank you guys. My name is Marie, I'm a neighbor here in West Highland, and I'm here to let you know about a certified Denver ballot initiative. Some people will just call it petition, that's probably what you've seen in the past too. It's being circulated right now with a plan to have it on the May 2019 ballot. And this particular initiative is only for people who want to have a say on how their tax dollars are spent. So hands up who thinks that's a good idea to have a say on how your tax dollars are spent. Okay, this is for you. And specifically, this initiative states that Denver voters should have a say before the city spends another dollar bidding for or hosting the Olympics. It's not a vote on whether the Olympics is a good or bad thing. It's not a vote on whether Denver should host it or not. It just says that if the city plans to spend taxpayer dollars on hosting the Olympics or bidding to host the Olympics, they first have to put it to Denver voters for a, yes, that sounds like a good idea. I personally think that having such a law on the books will promote transparency. Just how much money are we talking about being spent on the Olympics? It also spurs a discussion on priorities. Is this a top priority, or are there some other priorities we think that tax money should be spent on instead? And also it really furthers democracy because it gives voters a say about this. So I have a petition with me here. It is brand new. We have a very short period of time to collect signatures. I would ask that anyone who either has questions or would be willing to sign, please see me after the meeting. Remember, you are supporting the idea that this question gets on the ballot in May 2019. So it doesn't mean that you have to understand everything about it or have to know all the details in order to sign the petition. You simply get us a chance to vote on it in May 2019. And it's about Denver voters having a say before our tax dollars are spent on bidding or hosting the Olympics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. Oh, there's a question. Oh, there's a question.
I didn't know if questions were allowed, but go ahead.
So forgive me, I haven't looked at your final language.
I have it here for your signature, sir.
Does it still have direct or indirect in there?
I don't believe, well, I shouldn't say that. Let me take a look.
The reason
Yes.
is
Actually, so we're just saying any tax dollars, I think, direct or indirect, but let me find out what it says. Shall the voters of the City and County of Denver enact a measure prohibiting the use of public monies, resources, or fiscal guarantees in connection with any future Olympic Games without the city first obtaining voter approval, blah, 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 blah. It does not say direct or indirect, so any taxpayer resources. Do you have a concern about that? Do you want to follow up on that?
I think we were specifically putting direct and indirect because of the potential for them to use police, fire services, EMS, a whole, or right of way, where it's not, it's already an existing, expense.
Mm-hmm.
But that it wasn't, where we've invested, but we're not actually paying for those people, they're compensating for us.
Right. I think that the legal brains that were spent on this, and I'm not one of them, concluded that by saying money's resources or fiscal guarantees, it did encompass all of that. I hear your concern that somebody would be able to get around this. I think that if the voters of Denver approve this measure, it sends a very strong signal about how they want or don't want their public money to be spent without an explicit vote. And that's my comment about transparency. Let's outline what it is we're talking about spending here. That conversation would have to be had, and people would get a chance to vote on whatever that proposal is. So, but good question, and thank you. Anyone else?
Question related to that. By resources, do you mean human capital? So if I'm the City of Denver staffer and I want to see if this is a good idea, if I were to use any of my time, that would be to even present it, that would be a resource in and of itself because my position is funded through taxpayer dollars.
So, yes, if the city wanted to take, the equivalent of 10 full-time staff, which the taxpayers are paying for, to work on a bid for the Olympic, then I do believe that what this measure says is we have to put it to Denver voters first. If we're willing to invest those 10 full-time salaries in such a bid, yes.
The intent being that the promise and commitment from the Olympics components are that it can be delivered with private dollars. So they could certainly compensate the city for using city resources, because then they're not using city resources.
That's a great point.
But that's always been how it's been worked, right? Is that there's going to be a lot of your public investment that will be utilized, just not directly. And so, I'm just doing my job as a planner. Just happen to be planning for something that is related to the Olympics. If it has and I don't know how that language works. It sounds like it might be written in such a way that it captures that. That was the intent, is that no, you're going to discreetly define when you're working on Olympic stuff, and then that would have to be compensated or not. Or
So
not.
the exploratory process is not included, but the actual process to put together a bid would be included. So my question is, would you rule out an exploratory process where you don't even know, the city would want to put the bid in?
I think that process has happened already, and the exploratory committee, such as it was, came up with a recommendation that both Mayor Hancock and I believe the current governor said, yes, we're moving forward. So this says, before you move forward, we want to put a law on the city's books to say that before you move forward, there has to be a vote for Denver taxpayers to have a chance to say, do we want taxpayer money to be used in such a fashion or not? And there can be many different reasons why you would want that or not want that, and I don't want to go into that because I'll get pushed off here. So I just wanted to say that, just to wrap up on that point, if somebody did want to privately finance the Olympics, this particular initiative has nothing to say about that. We're only concerned with Denver tax money, how that's spent, and giving voters a say about that. And I hope to see you all after this. Thank you.
Hey, Marie, so you'll be here to answer any
Yes, I will be here, answer questions, get your signatures if you're willing. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Serena.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to put this down because I'm shorter. Hopefully I don't do anything. Hi, everyone. My name is Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez. I don't know if some of you remember me coming through here during the primary election. Well, I made it through, and I am now the House District 4 Democratic nominee for state representative. And we have a really big election coming up. November 6th is the general election. And, I'm coming here just to, loop back around and talk to all the different neighborhood groups. I'm here for questions, a little bit about who I am. I actually grew up not far from here, literally just blocks from here on 32nd and Vrain. And this is the same community where, I had my first job when I was 14 years old at a little local restaurant. Me and my little brothers would ride our bikes down to the corner store on 29th and Tennyson, which actually is still standing and still there, believe it or not. It's the same community where my parents owned and operated small businesses, which I actually came here when I was probably about 6 or 7 months pregnant with my second daughter, asking for a good neighbor agreement when my parents are opening up a restaurant. And so we've been a part of this community for many, many years. And this is also where I learned to stand up for myself and for others. And that's what I plan to do as hopefully your next state representative. I plan to work with the community, work with people. I have over 15 years of experience in child welfare and juvenile justice, working not only with families and children and youth in the Denver community, but for the last 5 years, I've been the director of the Denver Collaborative Partnership, where I have been working with all these different systems and systems that don't always agree with one another, working on systems level change. And that's really what I hope to bring to the Capitol. The things that I have been really running on and pushing is about access to basic human rights. Rights to a living wage, rights to affordable housing, affordable health care, and quality education. And, those are the things that I heard nonstop while knocking doors. We knocked over 32,000 doors during the primary election and won in a 3-way primary by 58%. And so, I'm standing here before you, an open book, and I'm happy. I know right now probably not a good time for questions, but I am going to stick around, and I'm happy to, answer any questions. You can also, reach out to me. My email is the easiest one is Serena, SERENA, for Colorado @gmail.com. My I don't want to say running mate, but Julie Gonzalez is running for Senate District 34. She couldn't be here tonight, and our districts overlap. So I am looking to fulfill Dan Pabon's seat, and Julie is looking to fill Lucia Guzman's seat. And we are actually doing a big canvas this Saturday. If people, feel motivated, want to get out there on the doors, talking to your neighbors, and it's for all of the Democratic candidates running, all the way from, Diana DeGette running for Congress, to our governor, to our AG, down to, House District and RTD. And then, of course, all of the various initiatives and props. So, what I'm trying to say is that how important this is. House District 4 is going to be towards the bottom of that ballot. And so what we're trying to encourage people is to make sure that they're not only voting for Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Governor, that we can't take anything for granted. We took things for granted in 2016, and we can't do that anymore. And, I constantly hear, well, House District 4, it's a safe seat and this and that. You don't need to do anything. But I feel differently about that. I feel like I do need to be here talking to community and hearing from you all. And so that's why I'm here tonight. And I hope to encourage you all to come out, and I'm happy to answer your questions. And I also have a sign in, so if anybody feels like they want to help out. Thank you.
We have one more speaker, I believe. Go ahead.
I'm gonna be brief. Hello, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Henning. I'm here to talk to you guys about the Denver College Affordability Fund initiative. This initiative is gonna be on the ballots November 6th. We have about 35 days to go, but who's counting, right? This is a very exciting moment for us to introduce this because the voters of the city and county of Denver are going to be able to decide about this initiative tax. It's a tax that is going to be 0.08 of a cent on every $10 purchase in the city and county of Denver. The funds of this tax initiative are going to be set for 12 years. And it's going to be an average of, the funds are going to be about $40 million a year. So to put it in perspective, it's about 50 cents on every $500 purchase in the city and county. So all the funds are going to be going to pay for college for low-income kids. So the kids are going to be from 19 years old to 25 years old. They have to be residents of the city and county of Denver for 3 years before they start going to college. The colleges that are going to be available on this, under this fund, are going to be the state colleges and city colleges and any other institution that is a nonprofit. So we're talking about college degrees, we're talking about technical schools, license for plumbers, electricians, anything, you know, that has to do with post-high school education, which is growing in this city and this county. As we know, I mean, the building is nonstop. So many people moving into the city, into the county, and there's a lot of kids that don't have the funds, the money to be able to go to school, to keep going, you know, and get a superior education, higher education degree. And we think that it's very important to give, you know, the opportunity to these kids to go to school, to, you know, develop careers, develop business, to spend all that money in the community and give back in the future as well. This initiative, like I said, is for 12 years. This is the first one ever. There was one that was proposed in 2015 that didn't pass. So if we pass, we're going to be the first one doing this, hoping there will be models for some other states or cities to do this and give that to the kids that have no chance to pay for school. The governor is going to be, because these are public funds, the governor is going to be the one who's going to select the committee that is going to handle these funds, and they go from there. It's going to be a pay for performance type of program in which the kids will go to school, they will pass the first semester, then it will be paid. And then they go to the next one, and then they pass, and it will be paid. So that's the way that it's been planned. We are very excited about it. It's something that can be so great for the city, for the county, and we're hoping to be the pioneers on this. Hopefully, you know, someday we'll have free college. You never know, but for now, this is what we have. And I have some flyers in the back. You guys can pick up one of those on your way out. It has the website, www.prosperitydenver. That's how you're gonna find it on the ballots. There's gonna be a lot of things to vote on November 6th. So you're gonna have to take your time to read every single, there's a lot of things in there. We're gonna be there. It's called Prosperity Denver. Please go to the website. If you have any questions, you wanna find out some more about it. In there, there's also a place to put your name if you want to volunteer. You want to have a sign on your house, on your yard. If you sign up, we'll gladly get it to you, so we can put it. We don't have that much time left. Any questions that you have, you can answer them. You can find them in there. The website is very nice, and explains everything about this system. One more thing about this initiative, I'm sorry. One more thing, there was another program before this called DDP, which is the Denver DPD, this is the Denver Preschooler preschool program. And what it was is, it didn't pass the first time that it was on the ballots. It passed in 2016, and so far, the funds for that program have been around $150 million, and it helps all the families with preschool children to, they provide all these services for free. And this one has been for everybody in general. The one that we are on the ballots, the Prosperity Denver, this one is gonna be specifically for low-income kids, kids that already have made up their minds to go to college. So we think that it's very excited. I'm very excited about it, you can tell. Any questions?
What was the number? What is the initiative number?
It doesn't have a number as far as I know. It just says Prosperity Denver.
300. Yes, on 300.
300. I didn't know that. Where was that? I don't know everything.
Okay, thank you, Henny.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me, and then just don't forget the flyer in the back so you can get all the answers there.
Question is, okay, they're reimbursed on a pass or fail basis. So if they pass, they're reimbursed for their,
Yes.
who pays for it if they are not, and they're low income? If they
That-
do not pass.
That I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that.
They might encumber
I know that
expenses to a
The
school.
website's really friendly, so prices are on there.
so I really don't know what happened if they don't pass, but as far as I know, it's paid per performance. So if they have to pass in order for the program to pay.
Okay, I'm sorry, was there another question for Henny? Roger.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, the student has any other obligations to the city beyond just completing his or her education?
No, there's just the rules. They have to be 19, between the ages of 19 and 25. They have to go to a school that is approved by the program, and they have to pass the grades in order to be refunded the money for the school. And they have to live in the city and county of Denver for at least 3 years before they start going to school.
Tony?
Do they have to be U.S. citizens?
Whatever rules are at the school, as far as I know, you have to be a U.S. citizen to go to college, or at least have some kind of legal status. When I went to college, that's the way it was. I don't know how it was.
In 2015, the asset bill is passed. For in states, you don't have to be a resident.
You don't have to be a Denver resident. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen to be a Denver resident.
Yeah. So on that regard, I don't know, because when I went to college, it was a different rule. But here, the rule here is 3 years of being a resident of the county state before they start the school.
Raphael, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just was going to give everyone a heads up that last year, this came through council, actually. Council put it on the ballot, not last year, last election. Council, this was a ballot initiative that originated with Chris Herman and members of council. I actually voted against that last go around. Because normally I don't mind putting things in front of the people for their consideration, but I didn't think that it was the right thing to take Denver
Thank you. Okay, it's 8:05. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.